FOMO, fear of missing out on something important. Phone rings, new notification. You look at the screen and see pictures of your friends at a party you didn't know anything about. They laugh, have fun, create memories. Without you, a familiar feeling begins to grow somewhere in your chest, a mixture of anxiety, envy, and the feeling that you are irrevocably missing something. Welcome to the world of FOMO, fear of missing out. Hi, I am glad to welcome you to our channel, where we explore the most common human fears. Today we will dive into a phenomenon that has become particularly relevant in the era of social networks, the fear of missing out on something important, or FOMO. This fear is not as obvious as the fear of heights or spiders. It doesn't cause instant panic. Instead, it quietly infiltrates our lives, forcing us to constantly check our phone, agree to activities that we are not interested in, and feel dissatisfied with what we have. According to research, about 70% of millennials experience FOMO regularly. But what is this phenomenon, and why is it so common in the modern world? FOMO is a social anxiety disorder characterized by obsessive worry that you are missing out on pleasant events that are happening somewhere without you. This is the constant feeling that other people are doing something more interesting, important, or useful than you are at the moment. Imagine the situation. You are at home, having a rest after a hard-working week. You are really tired and need this rest. But then you open Instagram and see that your colleagues have gone to a fancy new bar. They tag each other in photos, post stories, and it looks like this is the best night of their lives. And suddenly your quiet evening at home doesn't seem so pleasant anymore. You start to doubt your choice. Maybe I should have gone. What if there's something really important going on there? What if they're discussing work issues and you find yourself out of the loop on Monday? What if these shared memories bring them closer together and you stay away? This is FOMO in action. And although the term appeared relatively recently, the phenomenon itself has always existed. People have always been afraid of being excluded from a social group. But modern technology and social media have taken this fear to a new level. Let's take a look at the story of Jason, a 28-year-old marketing executive from the United States. Jason describes himself as a social junkie. He follows dozens of group chats, follows hundreds of social media accounts, and almost never refuses invitations, even if he feels exhausted. I always check my phone, even when I'm out with friends, says Jason. I'm afraid something more interesting is happening elsewhere. I was once at a close friend's birthday party, but I spent half the evening flipping through the feed and looking at photos from a festival I couldn't attend. In the end, I didn't enjoy either. Jason's story illustrates one of the main paradoxes of FOMO. When we try to miss nothing, we often miss what is happening right in front of us. But why are we so afraid of missing out? Where does this fear come from? The first and perhaps most profound reason is our evolutionary need to be part of a group. For most of human history, exclusion from the tribe meant almost certain death. We survived thanks to cooperation and mutual support. Therefore, the fear of being excluded, missing out on important information, or an event that brought a group together is deeply rooted in our psyche. The second reason is the information overload of the modern world. We are aware of far more events than ever before. If earlier a person could only find out about a party in the neighboring house, now we are aware of all concerts, festivals, exhibitions, meetings, and trips that take place around the world. And of course, we can't physically be present everywhere, which creates a constant sense of missed opportunities. The third reason is a distorted view of other people's lives, which is formed by social networks. We see only the best, edited moments from the lives of our friends and even strangers. No one posts photos of boring everyday life, quarrels, or moments of uncertainty. As a result, it seems that everyone around us is living a brighter, richer, and happier life than we are. The fourth reason is the culture of consumption and capitalism, which constantly instill in us that we should want more, try new things, and not stop there. Advertising plays on our fears and insecurities, making us think that without a certain product or experience, our life is incomplete. And finally, the fifth reason is a deep existential anxiety. We know that our time on Earth is limited, and we want to make the most of it. The fear of missing out on something important is, in a sense, the fear of not living our lives the way we might. But how does FOMO affect our lives? What are its consequences? Studies show that high levels of FOMO are associated with increased anxiety, depression, and overall decreased life satisfaction. People who suffer from FOMO are more likely to experience stress, sleep less well, and have lower self-esteem. FOMO also influences our decisions, often not for the better. We can spend money on activities that we can't afford, agree to meetings when we need a vacation, or constantly get distracted by social media when we need to focus on work or school. Moreover, FOMO can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more we worry about what we're missing, the less present we are in the present moment, and the more we really miss. Not external events, but our own lives. Let's look at another story. Anna, a 35-year-old teacher, says, "I've always been a very active person. It seemed to me that if I refused an invitation, I would miss the chance for new acquaintances or impressions. I agreed to everything: corporate parties, alumni meetings, birthdays of distant acquaintances. As a result, I brought myself to the point of emotional burnout. I was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. One day I realized that I couldn't remember the last time I just sat at home with a book or spent time with the closest people without rushing and thinking about what was going on somewhere else." Anna's story shows how FOMO can deprive us not only of peace, but also of a genuine connection to what is truly important to us. But there is some good news. FOMO is not a sentence. There are strategies and practices that help you deal with this fear and regain control of your life. The first and perhaps most important strategy is mindfulness and presence in the present moment. Mindfulness practice helps us focus on what's happening in the here and now, rather than worrying about what we might be doing elsewhere. Try to spend at least 10 minutes a day meditating or just being completely present in what you're doing, whether it's eating, walking, or talking to a friend. The second strategy is digital detoxification. Set a specific time for checking social networks, for example, twice a day for 15 minutes. Turn off notifications that constantly attract your attention. Try spending a weekend without social media and notice how it affects your mood and anxiety levels. The third strategy is the practice of gratitude. Write down 3 things every day that you are grateful for. This helps shift the focus from what you don't have to what you do have. Research shows that regular practice of gratitude significantly increases levels of happiness and life satisfaction. The fourth strategy is conscious choice and prioritization. Instead of responding to every invitation for fear of missing out, ask yourself, is this really in line with my values and interests? Will this event nourish my soul or exhaust me? Remember that every yes to one thing automatically means no to something else, including time for yourself. The fifth strategy is the cultivation of JOMO, or joy of missing out, the joy of missing events. It's a conscious decision to enjoy what you're doing, even if it means missing out on something else. JOMO is not just the absence of FOMO, it is the active enjoyment of your choice. Let's see how these strategies work in practice. Let's go back to the story of Jason, the social junkie. After he realized that FOMO was negatively affecting his life, he decided to make a change. "I started small," says Jason. "At first, I disabled notifications from all apps, except for messages from the closest people. Then I set a specific time for checking social media, in the morning at breakfast and in the evening after work. It was difficult for the first few days, but then I noticed that I became less anxious and more present in the moment." Jason also started practicing informed choice. "I made a list of my true priorities and interests. Now, when I receive an invitation, I check this list. If the event doesn't meet my values or if I feel that I need time for myself, I politely decline. Surprisingly, the world doesn't collapse when I say no." What about Anna, the teacher who drove herself to burnout? She tells us, "I started practicing gratitude. Every night I write down 3 good moments of the day. It helps me appreciate what I already have, rather than focus on what I might be doing somewhere else. I've also become more selective about what I agree to. Now I have time for things that really nourish my soul: reading, walking, deep conversations with close friends." These stories show that overcoming FOMO is a process that requires awareness and practice, but the results are worth the effort. It is also important to understand that some level of FOMO is normal. It's part of the human experience, to sometimes regret missed opportunities or wonder, what if? The problem arises when this fear begins to control our lives, depriving us of the joy of the present moment. Another important aspect of fighting FOMO is understanding that social media shows a distorted reality. People post only the best moments of their lives, often embellished with filters and editing. Boredom, fatigue, conflict, and uncertainty remain behind the scenes, which are part of everyone's life. Psychologist Dr. Sarah Thompson notes, when we look at other people's lives through the lens of social media, we compare our behind-the-scenes moments with their edited highlights. This comparison will always be against us because it is inherently unfair. Dr. Sarah Thompson recommends practicing social realism. When you see the perfect photo on Instagram, remind yourself that there are hours of preparation behind it, dozens of failed shots, and possibly filters or even Photoshop. Remember that even people with the most perfect social media profiles experience the same human emotions as you: fear, uncertainty, boredom, fatigue. Another effective strategy is to create your own meaningful rituals and traditions. When you have regular practices that bring you joy and meaning, you are less dependent on external events for a sense of fullness of life. This can include weekly family dinners, morning walks, board game nights with friends, or any other activity that suits your values and interests. It is important that these rituals are flexible enough not to cause stress, but regular enough to create a sense of stability and anticipation. Interestingly, research shows that people who actively plan and anticipate pleasant events experience more positive emotions than those who spontaneously respond to external stimuli. This is due to the fact that anticipation itself is a source of joy and also gives a sense of control over your life. Let's look at another story. Michael, a 42-year-old entrepreneur, says, I've always been a very ambitious person. I followed the success of competitors, attended all industry conferences, and kept up to date with all the news and trends. This seemed necessary for success, but in reality, it only led to constant anxiety and the feeling that I was always falling behind. The turning point for Michael was a serious illness that forced him to reevaluate his priorities. When I was forced to stop and focus on my health, I realized how much energy I spent on meaningless comparisons and chasing ghostly opportunities. I started practicing what I call strategic ignoring, consciously deciding what information to consume and what to ignore. Right now, Michael checks his email only twice a day, reads the news once a week, and only attends professional events that truly align with his business goals and interests. Surprisingly, not only has my business not suffered, but it has become more successful because I can focus on what's really important rather than wasting my energy reacting to every new trend or opportunity. Michael's story illustrates an important principle. Sometimes less is really more. By limiting the flow of information and opportunities, we can make more informed choices and achieve more in what really matters to us. Another important aspect of overcoming FOMO is the development of an internal compass that helps us navigate the sea of possibilities. This compass is based on a deep understanding of our values, interests, and life goals. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps during World War II, wrote about the importance of finding meaning as a key factor in psychological stability. When we know what is truly important to us, we are less affected by external factors, including the fear of missing out on something important. How to develop this inner compass? Start by thinking about your core values. What is really important to you in life? Family, creativity, knowledge, health, contribution to society? Write down 3 to 5 key values and think about how your daily decisions match or contradict them. Then think about your unique interests and talents. What do you really enjoy? What makes you lose track of time? What is easier for you than for others? These questions will help you identify areas where you can achieve not only success, but also deep satisfaction. Finally, think about your long-term goals. Who do you want to be in 5, 10, 20 years? What kind of footprint do you want to leave in the world? What memories do you want to create? These questions will help you focus on what really matters in the long run, rather than on fleeting opportunities. When you have clarity on these issues, making decisions becomes much easier. Instead of reacting to FOMO, you might want to ask yourself, is this in line with my values? Does this bring me closer to my goals? Does it take advantage of my unique talents and interests? If the answer is no, then most likely you are not missing out on anything really important to you. To sum up, FOMO is a common fear in the modern world, reinforced by social media and information overload. But through mindfulness, digital detoxification, practicing gratitude, making informed choices, and developing an inner compass, we can overcome this fear and live a more authentic, fulfilling, and happy life. Remember, you can't be everywhere and do everything. And this is normal. Instead of being afraid of missing out, focus on being fully present in what you've chosen. Because real life doesn't happen somewhere out there in other people's Instagram stories, but in the here and now, in your own moments, choices, and relationships. Thank you for being with us today. If this video helped you or can help someone close to you, please share it. Subscribe to our channel to learn more about human fears and how to overcome them. In the next issue, we'll talk about another common fear that affects millions of people. See you soon.